Welcome back to another episode of Keoni Chats. If this is your first time checking out the show, I say welcome, and that all episodes can be found on all major podcast platforms and YouTube when you search Keoni Chats. And that if you would like to be in the loop for when new episodes are released, then you can follow the show on social medias. That's KC Media 13 on both Instagram and Twitter, and then Conlu K Media on Facebook. So this week's episode is with Kai Limuaco. And Kai, I hope I said that right. So Kai and I met in high school. We both did wrestling together. And while I took a lot of things from wrestling in terms of like pushing yourself to the limit and then going a little further, Kai did that as well. Or he took that same kind of underlining lesson from the sport and applied it to his life, because he hit some roadblocks. He hit some hard moments, tough times, but he just kept going. He kept finding a way. When he knew that school wasn't the thing for him, he found an alternative route, and now he's a DJ. But he's a DJ that has to grind it out every day because it's such an interesting scene. It's such an interesting like community of DJing and the EDM world, that Kai is currently working a job at a restaurant. So it's just it just speaks to how I view him now, of like someone that just keeps going, and it's awesome. And I can't wait to. I was very excited because actually the DJing aspect of his life is what I originally wanted to talk to him about, but it just kind of sprouted up, like how most of the interviews are. It's just like, oh. Yeah, I won't go in great details about the interview, but for him to talk about his struggles with school, and then his struggles with just finding out that he has adult onset ADHD, that's crazy. I was just like, whoa, man. But yeah, it's this. I was just very grateful to get him on the show and talk to him about his life. So. If you are watching on YouTube, then you'll see a tag on the lower right-hand corner for KeoniConlu.com, KeoniConlu.com. So that is my website. That's where not just the audio, but also the video version of each episode will be found. I kind of all put together. I try to throw everything into one giant pot because I do also take photos. I do also have a couple blog series. And all that can be located at the website, KeoniConlu.com. I got to market it. No one else as well. So however you are listening to this episode on whichever platform you prefer, or if you are watching on YouTube, I hope you enjoy my chat with Kai Limuaco.
It's less people you got to pay.
I mean, I wish I could pay myself. Really?
that's
Jesus, man.
It's like, can I earn money for spending? It's like, like if I had a wage for every waking second I spent putting sets together for DJ sets, I'd be rich. I wouldn't be working this job I'm going to at 4 right now. Like,
well, okay. So, what did you think? What did you like? Did you have a plan for yourself, like coming out of high school?
Not really. No, that's the thing. I was living such a like self-destructive, like just like reckless lifestyle after high school, because it just like, I don't know, maybe just didn't take anything very seriously, you know what I mean? At that point I was kind of just like, oh, why did I go to high school? I already know all this stuff or whatever, Mr. High and Mighty, like, you know what I mean? Like, and that I never really, I mean, and that's the thing too, is even coming out of high school I wasn't like ever sure exactly what I wanted to do. There was no set college path or set career. I didn't get a scholarship in sports or anything like that. So there was no definite like clear answer to me. So I guess I just didn't really push it any farther than that until I got somewhat of a clear answer. And that was, I guess, kind of like my excuse for not going to college in a sense, was kind of just like, I'm not really sure of what's going to happen, or I don't want to do something that I'm going to absolutely hate for the rest of my life, or spend all these tens of thousands of dollars on a degree and I don't use it or something like that. And that was just my excuse for not doing that. But that I didn't translate that well into like actually benefiting myself. I really just really held myself back further in life really than I should have. I'm sure if I had done things differently in those earlier years after high school, I probably would have been a little bit better off now, probably a little earlier in my life too, but you know.
So are you saying, so for people that don't know,
Sure.
Kai and I, we wrestled together in high school.
Yep.
So are you saying you didn't get a wrestling scholarship? I haven't seen you in WWE or any
Nope.
of those other sports entertainments.
Unfortunately, no.
Ugh. The blonde hair could have sold me.
I mean, you know, that's the thing is that's a new thing too. That's just like within this last year too.
Yeah, well, okay, so I do remember you having brown hair or black hair.
It's like black. Like it's like the
Black.
color of my facial hair black. Like
Yeah.
it's dark.
Okay, so a little tangent. Why? Why blonde?
I was like, okay, so a friend of mine who is a hairstylist for a living, kind of owed me a favor, or I guess financially, whatever, it was like a favor, and essentially that turned into, well, do you want this favor to be in the form of like a hairdo, pretty much? And I was like, apparently I was just bored or something. I was like, yeah, you know what, whatever, let's do it,
Yeah, okay.
send it, whatever, you know what I mean? And it everybody loved it, and I loved it. Everyone I was like, wow, this is great. I've never gotten this much attention on anything, basically, until I turned my hair blonde, pretty much. So, but
Maintenance-wise, how's that been? Because that doesn't seem easy to do.
it's my hair grows so fast,
Yeah.
too, and it's just so dark. Because even like when I have to dye it, it takes 2 treatments because it does not get like this color with just one shot. Like
Yeah.
it's still kind of like yellow. Sometimes even leaning towards orange, depending on it or whatever. And even this was like a week ago, and you can already see some.
Black coming
You
in.
can already see it coming in
Yeah.
because my hair grows fast. But
Yeah.
that's fun.
I mean, you're not doing the box dyes, right? You're doing actual, like, you're going to a salon.
Like this is bleached. It's pretty much just bleaching my hair, essentially, like for real. Like yeah, I know. Well, the new hair that grows, and as long as long as you don't do it like all the time or whatever, probably after this is growing out or whatever, probably just gonna stop. It's more just like a summer spring look sort of vibe going on or whatever, you know what I mean?
I mean, if we were to put the real colors of a pineapple on your shirt, you will be matching with your hair right now.
Well, that's kind of why I like wearing this shirt. It's funny.
It's relaxing.
It gets good reviews with the current look or vibe right now. So
And I mean, for people that are watching on YouTube, obviously I'm wearing a floral shirt as well. So I like to wear something like this because it does make me stand out, makes me pop a little bit. And to some degree speaks to my personality of like, oh, okay, well, this is cool. I can like stand out from a crowd, and I like to be in the middle of a crowd sometimes. When you wear this shirt, for example, what kind of boost do you feel?
I mean, I can totally relate with that. I like to be unique. I like to feel original. I like, even that's kind of why the blonde hair came into. I was like, you know what who's really gonna pull this off other than this guy, pretty much. So I like that. That's just having that sense and that confidence, knowing that like this is what I look like or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody really looks like me. That's a good feeling to me. I like having that sort of like originality to it. That's kind of what I try to base everything that I do on, is just kind of being, original and unique and different, like you said.
We're different.
Exactly.
So going back, okay, so we're talking about high school, and we had somewhat of the same social circles.
Yeah.
In terms of a lot of overlapping friends, and actually maybe one. We'll count maybe 2. We'll count 1.5 of your friends did football with me. Also, someone you also went to the DJ realm with in Ferris.
Yeah.
So I know he and I play football. Rob, the other guy I was thinking of, I think he did for a little bit, but he's
Not so much.
He did
Probably
more
not so much for the sport, at least. Like
Yeah.
maybe for the ladies,
Which is also true. I mean, that was the name of the game. But when it came to wrestling, there's some parts of wrestling that you kind of pick up on, those non-teachable moments of like, okay, so this is how you stay disciplined. This is how you keep going at a goal. What are some of those things that you learned while in wrestling that weren't actual like physical wrestling, but like
because I mean, I'll be honest, I wasn't really in it for the sport, or really because I enjoyed doing it. I mean, it helped me keep in shape, but it taught a lot of. it pushed me to places where I have not been before in terms of like discipline or even just my own mental ability and how far I think I can actually go or whatever, because it was tough. I grew up a golfer basically and like maybe playing basketball. So when I don't know why I agreed to do wrestling at that point, or even now when I think about it, I was like, I don't know what got me to that point, but it taught me a lot in the same, like you're saying, just like stuff that you don't really know that you're capable of, but you can just push yourself, like the ability to be able to push yourself and like have a sense of determination that you can do this even though you feel like you're gonna pass out and you're not going to that you're not even gonna make it halfway through this, or you are halfway through and you're like, I'm not going to survive this, there's no way. But it'll help translate to other things that may make you feel the same way, even though it's not as like physically exhausting or physically demanding. You'll have that same sort of mental kind of focus that doesn't get taught unless you do things like that.
Yeah,
pretty much. If that makes sense. Like,
I mean, I never did any crazy diets when wrestling, because honestly, in high school doing sports, either football or wrestling, it's like, I don't know what dieting is. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't have to when you're 15, 16 anyways, to be honest, but
unless you're planning on like, making a run for some college level, but it's like, for some reason, like when it came to like dieting in my college life or adult life, it's like I kind of tap into that whole like discipline area, because it's like, okay, I don't have a goal I don't need to hit a weight by like the weekend. I just need to like think better about eating, which anytime any person that's like, oh, of a wrestler who did either high school or college, they're like, those guys are like anorexia.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few different eating disorders out there, but that's definitely one of them that'll keep you from just, it's literally prevent you from wanting to eat because of your current state, like whether it be physically or mentally or all that stuff. You just don't. It makes you sick. It makes you sick, pretty much. Like,
yeah, so
it's tough.
I know a lot of people. I don't know, but like I assume a lot of people are like, oh, these guys wrestle, they must be anorexic, or they might have like long-term like life, issues when it comes to like eating, which I guess to some degree I do have. I mean,
it's all about balance. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Is it's really just about moderation and being aware of that, because as soon as you lose that sense, then that's when stuff starts becoming negative. At that point, you can't lose sight of that. Even nowadays, like, I'll be eating terribly, like really I'll just be eating bad, and there will literally be days where like my body is telling me to eat a giant salad, like literally, and there will be days where I will eat very healthy just because like I feel like I need to be eating healthy. I try to listen to what my body's telling me to now, whether it be you're thirsty, you're dehydrated, you don't need to drink this weekend or whatever. I try to stay in line with that,
and partially because we're both 30, and I'm approaching 31 at the time of this interview, so it's like, I can't do those things anymore.
It's funny because I'll never be like that, and then you start rounding the corner and you're like, I can't do that anymore. Like I don't.
One of those is like staying up till midnight willingly. I don't think I do it anymore. I need to be doing something, or I need to have a project, like working on your episode, for example. It's like I can't just be there.
See, I'm obviously, because I work nights. Yeah, since I do bartending and serving and stuff like that. But I need to have something like that to get myself up, or I'm just going to just sleep and do nothing all day in the morning, which I don't. Mm-hmm. I try not to do. Try to do something productive, at least with my morning. At least one thing productive, because it's the same thing whether you daytime or nighttime. It's pretty much like if you don't occupy yourself with something productive, you're just not going to do anything productive. At least for me.
So there's one meme that I always think about when it comes to talking about weight. It's the whole Channing Tatum, like skinny from Magic Mike, like single life. Oh yeah. And then him fat running relationship life. I'm experiencing that, but I'm like slowly trying to make that transition back to like it. Not like I'm not trying to say I'm trying to go into single life, but trying to transition my body to be like in good shape as if I was in a single life. For you in your relationships past and going all the way back, did you do you ever look at yourself in the mirror and be like, "Oh, man, this is going a little bit too much, this stomach"?
Yes, at some point, yeah, it was a few years ago. That's the thing is like I started paying attention to things that weren't agreeing with my body. I've noticed things like I've taken allergy tests. Like I have a gluten intolerance. I have a bunch of other things that were contributing to the way my health is and my body processes stuff or whatever. So, there's certain things that I can't eat now because my body just doesn't want to digest them for whatever reason. So I just try to pay attention to all that stuff now because I really didn't for the longest time. And once I was a little more aware of a lot of that stuff, I just started feeling better. You know, it's I know it sounds so simple, but that's literally what it came down to for me was once you kind of notice yourself, once you notice yourself letting go or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like the only person who can ring that in is yourself. Yeah. And that's what you got to realize that.
Those other people in your life, you've met my older brother.
Yeah.
He can only tell me so much, like, "Oh, you've grown," and poke me in the stomach. Like, oh, I'm a little doughy. But yeah, and so when it came, so food wise, we're getting that figured out.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's work in progress, but as we were kind of in the talks leading up to this conversation, you talked about that something you want to talk, kind of touch base on is that it's okay to take care of yourself, and it's okay to like repair yourself. During high school, when you look back to it, what kind of, I won't say like personality, but what kind of like signs or like moments do you kind of recall that you're like, "Oh, I wasn't thinking the greatest. Obviously it's high school. Everyone can contribute that. But
that even just extended even just to right after high school. It was quite a few year period of time where what it really boiled down to is that you really just didn't really like, I don't know, there's no regard for, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's escaping me right now, but because
I'm thinking of like, there are certain times in my high school time where like their signs were like, okay,
I just kept a lot of stuff in.
Something I can work on.
That's just I kept a lot of stuff in. I never really shared my problems with anybody. I never really, even if I had a family, I have a great family and a good support system on that end and stuff like that. And younger me didn't really realize what I had until I got older, until I went through all that stuff and realized that they're still there for me, even though I made all these very questionable decisions at one point. And that's what's important is you can't keep all this to yourself because you're your own worst enemy. You know what I mean? You're just going to think I overthink too much as it is. Yeah. So when you're just stuck in your own thoughts and you stay in that loop, you get to a point where you don't really know what decision you're making is the right decision. You're going to always have that feeling of doubt that you're like, is what I'm going to do making the right decision? Because I've always just made the wrong decision. That was like my existence for a while there. It's just that there wasn't anybody I didn't have any other perspective on how I was feeling other than my own, which was not a good one. Yeah. So you can't grow from that. You can't learn from that until you just get some other word on how you're doing other than just what you think of yourself. You know what I mean? It's important to share all that stuff and have other people around with you, whether that be family or be a therapist or it's important to have somebody to talk to about things that aren't necessarily with yourself. You know what I mean? Just some things you can't work through yourself. That's,
And, there's, when I went to therapy, this is like my second stint. So, and when I did the initial paperwork, like I knew how I was feeling, but I couldn't attach like an actual word to it. I want to do something, but my body freezes and I don't know how to like get over that. And then when I remember the therapist, when he was reading over that, he was like, your body freezes? I was like, let me explain, because I can explain better than I can actually write it out. So he was like, that's called anxiety. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Me?
Me? Anxiety? Like, yeah.
Because I guess middle school, high school, I always thought of myself as someone that likes to talk to everyone.
Oh.
So I was like, I don't see a reason why I have issues with doing something. But then when you obviously when you digest it, you're like, oh shit.
Well, there's social anxiety. There's all kinds of different kinds of anxieties out there. Just because you're comfortable talking to people, it doesn't mean that you won't be freaking out doing something else, like getting on a stage and performing or giving a speech in front of a class, because that's a different kind of anxiety than just walking up to somebody and saying, hey, what's your name, and stuff like that or whatever.
True.
And you can't ignore that stuff.
How are you feeling right now?
Fantastic. We're great.
You got little shakes going on.
Oh, no. We're
Is that
good.
just a normal?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was recently diagnosed with ADHD.
Oh.
Like adult ADHD.
Whoa.
And I probably had that all throughout high school too, but it was kind of just like a under the radar, unnoticed sort of thing until it actually started causing some negative effects, like when I started working in restaurants, and multitasking was a very hard issue with getting very forgetful with things. And it was the first time in my life that I realized I was like, something's not right, pretty much, because it's just not it didn't seem normal to me just to be so forgetful and try to leave the house and forget something 3 times and go back and forth. And I was just like, something is up right now, because I just can't focus on a lot of stuff like that. Went to talk to my primary care physician and a therapist about it and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, well, it sounds like it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then I go to my own mother. I'm like, hey, what's the chances of me possibly having ADHD or ADD or something like that? And she's like, oh, probably pretty likely. She's just like, you were always a pretty crazy kid, but you were functional and it didn't affect you in a bad way or anything. So we didn't really make too much of a fuss about it. So
do you think that when you look back at it, that the underlying symptoms of ADHD affected your schoolwork?
It very well could have, because I've thought about this a lot. And I was like, it makes a lot of sense now. Now when I connect all the pieces together and stuff like that. But I'm at this point it shoulda, coulda, woulda. What is in the past, and it happened for the way it did, and we still came out okay for the most part. Well, you'll figure it out eventually. You know blonde? What I'm saying? Went blonde, did all this crazy spontaneous stuff this year. It was cool. It's been a fun year.
Yeah. So I always thought of myself when it came to tests and because I went the journalism route, because obviously it's in my mind it was easier to excel in because it's more project based, creative, versus economics where it's very tests and a lot of equations, and that just did not speak to me at all. So for a long time I thought maybe I'm just not a good test taker. And then, do you remember the show Tosh.0?
Yes.
Yeah. So I just remember hearing a line that he said of quoting a video of oh, this person, you're not a dumb test taker, you're just dumb. So that kind of stuck with me for a little bit, because I was like, am I dumb?
No, that's the thing is the test anxiety. That's another anxiety pretty much. It's you could study days, hours, weeks on end, and as soon as that thing gets put in front of your face and you got the pencil in your hand, you're like, I don't remember anything, literally. And that would happen a lot, honestly. Maybe that had something to do with it.
Is that why you didn't go to college?
I mean, that's the thing is, like I said, it was more of just I didn't feel comfortable going to it. I just didn't. Sure. I mean, we moved out here from Guam. We weren't, the best financially off speaking or whatever, because we literally sold everything to move out here as a family pretty much. So it was pretty much the usual, take a student loan out, do all that sort of thing or whatever and stuff like that. But I don't know. I had anxiety thinking about taking out a multi-$1,000 loan in my name without having even a smallest clue of what I want to try to do for the rest of my life. It just didn't sit well with me, so I never pulled the trigger, whether it even just be prerequisite classes at PCC or something like that, which is probably what I should have done, so that now I could do whatever, and it would take half the time pretty much. Now I look back at it, but it's never too late. I mean, it's the thing, you say we're 30, but we're only 30, so like glass half full. There's still plenty of time to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
They have accelerated programs now, really, for those kinds of people too. Like,
true. Like, education system has grown exponentially since our time. And, I mean, to put a real spin to it, Dwayne Johnson's 50, and look at him. I mean, we could totally get there.
Yeah, it's like, he looks the same. Looks just, if anything, he looks more buff now than he did when he was, like, 30. Like, for real. Like,
we could totally do that, Kai.
Yeah.
We could totally do that.
Exactly. Or role reversal. We're just going to look better when we're older than we did when we're younger.
Which is hilarious when you see, like, I've seen a lot of Instagram of, like, let's say Dwayne Johnson at 30 or 23 or something like that, and then him now. It's like, dude, you look so much better.
It's like, yeah, it's like, if anything, yeah, you look like you're not doing, like, some unhealthy lifestyle stuff to look so, like, massive and swollen. You actually look, like, just, like, normally, like, big.
As normal as he can get.
Yeah, I mean, well, the dude works out, like, 10 hours a day, I'm pretty sure, so.
True.
You're going to look like that regardless if you work out that much, like.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that transition from, because I believe it was age 14, 15.
Yeah, it was freshman year. Yeah, pretty much 14.
What was that? What did you remember of your parents telling you, "Hey, we're leaving Guam. We're going to the United States"?
Well, I mean, yeah, it was
because you can remember a lot of things from like 14.
Yeah.
15.
Oh, yeah. It was a very big, important part of my life for sure. I mean, to be honest, when they said that, I didn't even know where Oregon was. I kind of had an idea that it was like on the West Coast. I'm like, it's somewhere over there, maybe next to like Montana or something like that or whatever. But I didn't really know anything about it whatsoever. I just knew we had a couple family members that lived there.
Okay.
On both sides. But it was pretty much, they're like, hey, I know you started high school out here, but you're pretty much going to finish high school out there. And we still had a bunch of family out there, and I mean, they both kind of gave us the option. They're like, if your heart is set on staying out here and you can stay out here. You have family out here. We have property out here. You'll be okay if that's what you choose. But we're trying to get you out of here because we want you to be in a better education system, which it was even worse out there at that point in time in Guam. Just, cost of living is really high. Let's be honest, you can get stuck out there if you don't really find something that is going to get you off the island, which is usually the military for the most part, or if you don't find something on the island that's going to get you set there pretty much for life, then it's going to be tough. You know what I mean? You're going to have a lot of hardship growing up unless you figured something out to do there, which on a island that small, your percentages are not as high as the entire United States out here, basically. So that was pretty much their reasoning for it, and made sense to me. So there's only so much that you can do out there before you do everything.
Did joining the military actually cross your mind at all, or you?
Oh yeah, that was a serious option at one point for sure.
Okay.
They're both out there and here for sure. Mostly here because I was getting older. I was very, very close to joining the Air Force just because I did not know what to do with my life. And I was 16, 17, freaking out like,
good
I don't
knees?
know if I
you
want
had
to
good knees?
Yeah, at that point. Yeah, no, not anymore.
No.
Not anymore.
Shot.
My knees weren't even that good even before wrestling. That wasn't a good idea regardless. So like, yeah, I'm grateful for them for doing that because there's definitely much more opportunity out here. Definitely would not be where I was today if they didn't sacrifice their entire 27-year existence together before, they decided to move over here. Because my mom is from the States originally. My dad grew up out there, but my mom's from like New York, like upstate New York.
I mean, now the question asked, why not go to New York?
Because it's the weather over here is much nicer. We'll just start there. People over here are much nicer. It's just, and the humidity over there is something else too. And then I also don't like getting dunked with like 6 feet of snow in the winter, and you like can't get out of your house. And but people are still like, they're like, you gotta go to work because we're in New York. You know what I mean? And then it's like, 0.6 inches here, and people at the town shuts down. This car crashes everywhere. Chaos ensues. Yeah,
basically.
Everybody sound the alarm. Like,
yeah.
It's a different world out there.
Okay.
Not that I don't like it, but if you're gonna ask me where I'd prefer to like live and like spend most of my time, it's definitely over here. I like the Pacific Northwest a lot. I really do.
Yeah, like I visited New York because my brother, he was working for at the time he was working for a company that let him travel to kind of help set up stores, and so he was like, okay, he was there for like a week, and then the weekend he was like, okay, how about you come over, and then we'll go to a Patriot game, Patriots versus the Jets. I was like, cool. I've never been to an NFL game, and then I just remember him walking so fast throughout the crowds, and I'm just like, stop, I want to look around. And he was just like, you gotta just keep walking. Why? I want to look at things.
Just how we walk here, man. That's just how we do it. Like,
I understand you're adapting to New York life because you've been here for a week or so, but I'm still an Oregonian with my walking speed. Just acknowledge me.
Yeah, no, I like the consistent weather out here is a big one for me.
Now, do you remember much of Guam's weather? Like, is this pretty close to it?
No, heck no. I mean, you have seasons. You don't have seasons in Guam. It's pretty much just
hot.
It's raining or it's not, basically. Pretty much, because it's very tropical.
Yeah,
very much so.
Okay.
It's slightly more tropical than Hawaii. It's basically the same thing. It's probably even a little more humid just because it's closer to the equator technically than Hawaii is on the globe sense or whatever, but it's very much so like that. There's not like 4 seasons or anything like that.
Okay.
It's literally in the middle of the ocean. Like, it's crazy.
Okay. And then so you're transitioning to freshman year of high school. How's your English?
Oh, it's fine. They speak English out there. I had kind of an accent probably when I first moved out here, but they teach English out there. It's the main language in Guam. So
okay,
my English was fine. Okay. It probably just sounded a little funny when I first moved here. But
can you tap that accent? Can you bring it back?
No way. I know my dad can. I know. Whenever he sees this, he knows exactly what he's talking about. But I can't really do it on the spot. Not like that. Not anymore.
What does your dad and mom do for
work? Pops works for an advertising agency.
Whoa.
They're based out of like Lake Oswego, like Tualatin area, whatever. But
my neck of the woods.
Kind of, yeah, like right behind Bridgeport Village, actually, right over there.
Yeah.
But they pretty much do advertisements on like for like golf courses and stuff like that. They'll put ads on like hard products like benches and tee signs and stuff like that, and then they'll do paper products like course guides with like maps and other stuff, which is what I was doing when I was printing at that print job that we were talking about earlier. Yeah. And we worked at the same company for a bit, but just in different departments. But he pretty much was selling the advertisements that I was printing on these paper products and stuff like that. Mom now works for I think it's Providence.
Okay.
But she works from home. She's pretty much like a call intake line right now. I'm not sure if it's still for like the COVID intake line or for some kind of scheduling. I know she does a lot of scheduling and insurance processing and other computer logistical stuff, but from home. So
that's true. That's true. When you guys were living together, that must have been nice and bad. You know.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah. Everything has its pluses and its minuses, but it's. She likes it just so she can, there's a bunch of dogs over there so you can take care of them and still,
True.
You don't have to, you can literally be in your pajamas pretty much all day.
Just from the waist up.
Exactly, yeah. Or until it's meeting time and you throw on a shirt real quick and then throw on the camera and then you're good to go for another week pretty much. Like,
yeah.
But, no, it's nice. I know she likes it. I know she loves it. It's definitely convenient having somebody always there to get your Amazon packages or whatever it is that's coming to the door.
True.
Yeah, but luxuries of living with your parents that also work all the time at home as well. So
Which is not, yeah, okay. I mean, I lived with my parents too for a year. I guess my mom and my mom's partner, but it was, I don't know, because for me, like, I was still trying to figure myself out in terms of like a job. I haven't had my first adult job, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So I was like kind of in and out. I also, like, relationship wise, I was still trying to figure some stuff out, figure some shit out. You can curse on this, by the way. And I don't know, there was some comfort in it, but also it just felt like I didn't like the comfort, Keoni Chats is proudly sponsored by Adelsheim Vineyards. Adelsheim is a winery based out of the Pacific Northwest since 1971. Founders David and Ginny Adelsheim opened up the winery with the goal to create world-class wine out of the Chehalem Mountains. Adelsheim works with companies like The Growing Gardens, One Barrel, the Portland Trailblazers, and now the Keoni Chats podcast show. I can't say thank you enough to the folks at Adelsheim for giving this small podcast this opportunity to speak about their company and give the listeners or viewers of the show this amazing reason to try some of their products without, hitting the wallet as hard as it really does. So, because I know wine can be an expensive person's game. So every little reason to stock up, I think that's amazing. So thank you to Emily McMullen and the folks at Adelsheim for believing in us. So if you'd like to try some of Adelsheim's wine, go to ADELSHEIM.com, and then you click the shop button on the top right hand corner, and then start creating a cart. Throw in some Pinot Noir, throw in some Chardonnay, throw in some Rosé, maybe something from the merchandise section. But before you check out, use the discount code Grand Cru, GRANDCRU. It's a very well-known term across the wine community, and if you'd like to know what it means, give it a quick Google search. And I'm honored. I'm honored. So, yes, Grand Cru will get you 20% off your total purchase, and that is also huge. So, thank you for that for that great reason to, again, try some wine that's not going to hurt your wallet too much. So you must be 21 years and over to purchase any alcohol from Adelsheim, and everyone, please enjoy responsibly.
Well, at some point to me, it's you still love your parents. You're still gonna do all this cool stuff with them and celebrate all this family stuff or whatever, but they pretty much, when you're an adult living at home with your parents, there's that roommate sense that kind of comes into it too, and and then it gets to the point where, like, I don't really want to be, like, disturbing my parents or messing up what they want to do in their own house just because their almost 30-year-old son is staying with them right now and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I've found myself trying to, or always, not necessarily like trying to hang out there, always trying to be out and about, always trying to do things, kind of give them their piece. And I'm sure they were fine, with me being there and stuff like that. But internally in my head, I just kind of was just like, yeah, this still isn't, like, my place or whatever. So I almost just, like, felt obligated to, always not necessarily be there.
So when you were still figuring out a career for you, and you see your mom working at Providence, your dad working in advertising, did you see yourself doing that too?
Definitely not. No, I mean, because that's the thing is, like, even every job that I had prior to that printing job, it was kind of just, they all happened so naturally, because even that job that I had gotten at the advertising agency, obviously my father worked there, so I was having issues finding work, and I started there first, and in the wood shop, actually, like, doing woodwork, like sanding boards and painting stuff and doing staining stuff and whatnot. And they had an opening in the press room just to, like, cut paper, just like to do like a bindery work, pretty much, like staple books together and do that kind of stuff, and just lift stacks of paper and cut it all day to certain sizes on a giant machine or whatever. And then the company was expanding and getting bigger, so they got more printing machines, and then they pretty much let me learn on the job from there how to become a print operator. Yeah. And then once I hit that point, I basically hit the ceiling in terms of the production department over there. It was making pretty decent money and had really good benefits. And my schedule was Monday through Friday pretty much. It wasn't 9 to 5, but it was 2 to 10:30. It was swing shift. So, but it was stable. And that's worth something in itself, honestly, for sure. So like the print job, like I was good at it. I did fine at it, but even still at that point after doing I was like, this is not it. Like I do not want to be like these crusty old guys that taught me how to do this stuff, and they're like, somebody's gotta take over and do this. I'm like, it's not gonna be me, dude. Don't hold your breath, because I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life. You know, It's not the most glamorous job. Stability is one thing, but if you go to work kind of dreading it before you even get there, sort of thing, that's something that I didn't pay attention to until more recently in my life too. Is that money is one thing, stability is one thing, but if you're not necessarily happy with what you're doing, it's gonna be hard to stick that out for a long time. And I did that press job for quite a few years, but probably just because it was so stable. But I didn't care for that job whatsoever, which is probably why I started picking up serving shifts and stuff like that. I think I had a friend who worked at a hotel or a restaurant or something at the time, and they needed help because nobody wanted to serve or whatever. And I was like, well, I'll try it out. I'll pick up a couple shifts. And then that developed into more of that. And then all these managers and restaurants are telling me, you're very good at this. You need to keep doing this. And I was like, oh, think about it. I kind of work a lot at this print job or whatever. And then when the pandemic started, I lost that print job. They temporarily laid me off, but then that ended up turning into a
permanent layoff.
Permanent layoff. Yeah, I was furloughed. Excuse me, that's the word for it. So I was still getting somewhat paid from them, and I was able to keep my benefits throughout that period, but I was basically collecting unemployment and being temporarily laid off until they were just like, yeah, half of our company is downsizing. We don't need you to come back. I was like, well, that's that.
Yeah. Because I was about to ask, like, oh, why aren't you still there now? But now, look at that, mystery solved by a pandemic.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was like a reset button, really, for me. I hate to use such a negative thing as, like, a turning point, but it really was, because I was like, now the door's wide open again, like, to do wherever I want to take it. So I took the restaurant customer service route, because I remember people saying, hey, you're good at this sort of thing or whatever. So I took another shot at it, started serving in actual, dining establishments and restaurants, and excelled very well there. Did well at that. And I've kind of just been slowly riding that train and building it up until where it is now, where I work in a pretty nice place. I bartend, worked doing that kind of stuff now. It's just that's just been growing into its own thing or whatever. You know what I mean? And most importantly, I'm happy doing this job. Exactly. That's the thing. Because literally, I can go to work and not, like, it's actually fun sometimes. There's days I've had at work as a bartender here at this restaurant where it's been fun. Like, literally, I go to work and I was like, wow, I didn't feel like work today. So, quickly going back to your press operator days, what was it like when you did a project for our former high school? I did them all the time. That's the thing. All those calendars, like, that you see that go up in the restaurants or whatever, that have the whole schedule, the picture of the whole team. Oh my, I made so many of those, dude. It hurts, like, for real. For a lot of the school districts in this area, like, for sure. Like, yeah, because I went to one of the I guess a high school game back at the old stadium, and I just remember, like, they were doing well against a team that we didn't do well our senior year. So it's like, A, I'm like happy for you guys, but B, it's like, what the fuck? No, and even all those banners, like, on the baseball field.
Oh yeah.
Same company, literally the same company.
Wow. Literally. Look at you. You should have just, like, signed it somewhere very strong.
No, I would do that on the back. Sometimes I make. Oh yeah, I'd do that stuff sometimes. No, for sure.
You are now everywhere, sir. Exactly.
Literally. No, I would do that stuff sometimes. That's funny. How did
because again, during this press operator stint, that's where you found DJing.
I mean, actually, I was doing it, like, even shortly after high school.
Yeah.
Or whatever. That's when I
got really, like.
Yeah, that's when I first started getting into it, but I didn't start, like, trying to become the DJ until around that time period in my life, just because I had such a consistent schedule that I was able to, plan things out and try to go out on certain nights and plan ahead and do stuff like that. And
you were getting the money to also help pay for this.
yeah, exactly. So I could do
project.
all this stuff to support my new DJing hobby and stuff like that, because I didn't have to worry about the financial aspect of it, because I had a 9-to-5 on the side or whatever. And that was a funny time period as a DJ, because I remember playing at some of the worst, just dirtiest, just worst places with the worst equipment and the worst speakers and sound, and nobody's there. A couple people walk in, the couple people that do stick around are just so obliterated they don't even know what's going on anymore. But that's where I got a lot of the practice and the skill sharpening, and to be confident to even go out in public and stand on something and play something out on speakers or whatever. That was the first barrier to break down in terms of that stuff or whatever.
Yeah, and when I saw your previous DJ, was it DJ name? Is that the proper terminology for it? It was a CMYK. Yeah. At first, I thought, because my partner, she asked, what is IYKIY?
Oh, yeah. For? Yeah, if you know, you know. Yeah.
I think I did the acronym wrong, but yeah. So I randomly attached that to your previous DJ name. I was like, there's got to be a meaning here. But then you did an interview with What's Next PDX.
Yes.
So how was helpful was like they had your name like kind of like bouncing around the back.
Yeah, that was I'll never forget that day. It was such a fun day.
Yeah, talk about that day.
Man, so I was let's see, I had met a couple of these guys at one of those just random offbeat gigs or whatever and stuff, and they were like, hey, you're pretty good DJ and stuff like that, whatever. And he's just like, let's hang out, let's get together, stuff like that. God, I can't remember. One of the guys' name was Noah. The other guy's name was I can't remember his name, but these guys were cool dudes. And they pretty much essentially said, hey, get in touch with us, fill out a bunch of this form or whatever, and send us a mix. And we're doing this live stream thing where we feature local DJ talent or whatever. We got like a green screen room down in my basement and all this stuff. We got all this gear set up and cool. And I was like, sweet, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And I thought it would be good exposure too, because it's better than whatever else I was doing at that time or whatever. So, did that pretty much. That was a game-changing moment for me, because that was the first true like live set that I had played like to a lot of people, because there was no retakes, there was no editing, it was one shot, like, here you go, hit the play button, and that's it.
Yeah, because you also posted it on your Facebook page. You also pinned it, so it's like one of the things on the very top. And it's like, yeah, you played for like an hour and some change.
Yeah,
right?
It was an hour 20 minutes or something like that,
that's going to be almost as long as the podcast.
That's typically how long I play sets in the club for too. And when they ask me to play, it's usually about an hour, anywhere from an hour to an hour 30 minutes. And it's funny because when I tell people that I spent 2 weeks putting together this hour and 15 minute set, they're like, what do you mean? That doesn't make any sense. And I'm just like, you don't understand. Like, there are even the set that I most recently played a couple Fridays ago. It was an hour and 15 minutes. There were 47 songs smashed into that. So, like, only using about 30 seconds to 2 minutes of each song at a time. But it was just constant, just song changing. But it takes so much time to get all that stuff lined up, all that stuff, arranged so that when I do plug it into this $10,000 equipment on this multi-$1,000 sound system in a club, that it's not going to be all messed up or sound all weird, or it's going to... the software, I analyze it properly, so I get all my information up on there and stuff like that, because that is like my worst nightmare, dude. Like, just going through all that time to set everything up, and it just, you get up there and it just does not work. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I did watch a little bit, and then I know you've been doing some shows recently.
Yeah.
When it comes to prepping for, prepping for What's Next PDX is going to be so different than prepping for, what is it? Was it Escalator?
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
was the one I most recently
That
played.
was one
yeah,
of your more
for,
recent
for
ones. I was trying to
Yultron,
find video clips of you doing your thing, but I couldn't find anything. But
Oh man, I mean I got some I can share with you too for sure. I
Ah.
definitely do have some.
But yeah, so what was it? What's the preparation like? I mean,
For-
for the
Yultron, yeah?
escalator, yeah. Because, and then what was that growth? Because I know when I come to doing this podcast, I'm like, okay. At first, I was like, I think I'm doing this, and also I can only do it for like short times.
Yeah.
Because then I start hating myself because of how I sound. So.
Well, it's funny because you asked me this and I was like, man, I hate hearing myself talk. I'm not gonna lie, like.
And you're gonna hear yourself talk. With
I
this
know
episode.
it's gonna be funny. It's
Yeah.
gonna be hilarious.
Yeah. So first off, okay. So journalism wise, don't ask 2 questions, but I'm gonna ask 2 questions anyway.
Yeah.
What was your growth preparation been like from preparing for What's Next PDX to preparing for Escalator?
So, when I was doing What's Next PDX, I was working. I mean, at that print job, obviously.
Yeah.
So, but it was a solid 80 to 90 hours a week. Like I had a lot of time dedicated to that, so I had very little time in between to actually, it would just be little chunks of it here and there. I remember doing it in little segments so that I would just like, okay, that little chunk is good, and as long as I connected that chunk to that chunk, after I do that the next day, then I should be fine or whatever. But nowadays, as a bartender or server, I probably only work maybe 30 to 35 hours a week. It's definitely a little less of a workload hours wise. This gives me a little more time to, make stuff really sound the way I want to sound it. Because before it was a little more rushed.
Mm-hmm.
Rushed is it because I mean I'm such a perfectionist that it hurts when I have to rush on stuff like that. Because I know it's not as good as it could be.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that back when I was doing more of the What's Next PDX stuff and playing at these other small places because I just simply did not have the time, nor were these places actually paying me to give me enough incentive to actually want to do nothing but focus on that stuff.
True.
Nowadays, we're getting paid real money to do this stuff.
Yeah. Big venue,
big names that you're opening for is not just whatever local Thursday night at some bar. It's like the real deal, like big time DJs at a real club downtown, and it's different. I mean, even just knowing that, my perfectionist self will spend almost all the time that I have from when I get that call saying like, hey, we need you. I'm gonna need you, or would you like to open for Yultron Escalate Tour or whatever in 5 days or whatever. And I'll be like, you betcha. And those next 5 days, pretty much all my free time is spent fine-tuning that, going over it. I must have went over that Escalate set about 12 times like at my house before I actually like took it out, took the flash drive out and saved it and uploaded it all to that thing. But what did I like to say, people? That by the time you see me play a set at the club, I'm probably so sick of it. Like, honestly, like I've gone through it so many times that I probably don't even want to hear it again after I play that. But that's like how much preparation I put into now, because I feel spoiled when I play at these places. It's serious. Like, it's like I don't want to, if these guys are trusting me to, open up on these giant fancy stages and these multi-$1,000 systems or whatever for internationally known DJs, you got to show up. You know what I mean? You gotta bring your best.
Because even if you heard the song a million times, but then when you play it, is there something about watching the people's reactions that gets you just revitalized? Or
that's just it. That's the only reason why you still do it. Really, you can. What's the point of spending all this time in the set and making all this stuff sound all good if there's not really going to be anybody there to experience it other than you, who's clearly sick of it already or whatever. So whether you're streaming it on live on Facebook or on a streaming platform or whatever, or it's on a stage in front of 100, 200 people or whatever, that's the motivation. Because then after it's done, you get that gratification, you know what I mean? Because then people telling you that it's good, and all the stuff that you didn't think was good, or you're like, I don't know if that was good, because your own perspective and what I'm hearing up there is still very different from what other people are hearing too down there. But hearing that afterwards and knowing that everything that you thought was going to go wrong didn't go wrong is is refreshing. It's a good feeling.
How do you handle compliments?
I'm not good at it. I'll be honest with you.
I feel like us creative types, or just anyone that has a passion project,
it's hard for me to take compliments. It's funny, like.
So I'm watching you perform, and then I see you come off stage. I'm like, dude, that was awesome. What are the first couple thoughts that you go?
First couple thoughts are like, there's no way. Like literally, that's literally the first thing across my mind. I was just like, they're just being nice. But then you talk more, and they're like, hey, maybe they're not kidding and stuff like that. And you can tell when people are being genuine about stuff like that. And but literally, my first initial thought is just like, pretty much hop off of there. I'm just like, well, it's over now. That's just it. Like, you know, if it was good or it was bad, it's done now. That's the thing. So,
okay.
But it's funny, that whole anxiety does not leave until the music gets plugged in on stage and it shows up, and I'm like, okay, there we go. Because that's the hard part. Getting all that stuff organized to me is 100% harder than doing the actual technical DJing stuff. Okay. At least for me, because I've done so much of that it just comes so naturally. But it's making sure that everything is right up until that point. That's what freaks me out. For sure.
When as you're working away, like let's say back to the, I guess, I always say green room.
Yeah, that's what they call it. They still call it that. Yeah.
I'm learning just as much as you are.
Hey, they still call it that. Yeah, it's still that.
What is something you do that kind of just helps you, like? I mean, you're still you're riding a high of like, you just finished a performance.
Yeah.
All this anxiety, all this work you brought in. What do you do as soon as you enter that green room, and then you're like, you shut the door, and then it's like, you're either by yourself or with maybe a couple people.
Usually by yourself, because usually it's kind of just like, you know, you'll swap out with the other person that's coming on or whatever. Pretty much shake hands like, yeah, what's up? All right, you kill it, my man. So then you go back there and you kind of just sitting there by yourself. You're just like, that was it. You're just like, at that point you just feel the weight just lift off of you, because then you're just like, yeah, like you just wanted to take a deep breath, just exhale, like it's done. It's the most relieving feeling, and it's the quietest moment probably in the entire night of sitting in a nightclub. It's just, you just have this one nice moment of clarity, deep breath, and then you pretty much, most of the time I open, so then I can pretty much just hang out and just have fun or whatever. I usually get a few free drinks too with my payment as well. I get a couple free tokens, so pretty much just have a couple free drinks, watch some of the others, watch the headliner.
Yeah.
If I want to stay after and meet them, maybe then I could stay all the way till 2 a.m. or whatever, but I typically don't. But there's a couple of times where I've definitely taken advantage of that.
Sure.
It's cool.
Sure.
I've met some really, really cool, influential people in my life.
Yeah.
Doing that, which is cool.
Which, again, I didn't even think about, because, you know, when you think of Portland, Oregon, you just think of like downtown Portland, because that's like the most iconic area. Yeah. And then a lot of white folks. So, I mean,
sure, yeah.
Sugarcoat that.
Predominantly, yeah.
But then I didn't realize there's like, also like the bar scene, food carts, whatever. But it's like, I didn't realize like there is an actual like walking downtown, for example, I look on a flagpole or like a electrical pole, and I just see a bunch of flyers for other DJs and other EDM concerts or whatnot. What is the community? What is that community like?
It's funny because there's two sides to it. There's a very largely underground side that is mostly spent through flyer promotion and word of mouth and Facebook, and a lot of, you know, like, as underground's the best word for it. It's not as publicly advertised as some of these other places that you're legit getting Facebook ads, like sponsored ads for, that these people pay for, like for the clubs like 45 East, or there's another one that's recently come out called the North Warehouse. Those guys have a lot of stuff going on now, and it is massive. It is a giant venue. But it's always, the thing, it's funny because even since I started doing this about a decade ago, it's always existed. It's always kind of been there. It's just, it hasn't really been noticed until this kind of music started slowly incorporating into mainstream music. You got people like Dua Lipa coming out with stuff like that, or even The Weeknd's new album is fantastic, and then Calvin Harris and all these other people that are slowly bleeding the electronic dance music influence into everyday life, to the point now where a lot of these other underground DJs are also slowly leaking into that mainstream realm too, and now you're seeing like almost like a cross between the two now, and it's exciting to see it now because I knew it would happen at some point. Doing this a long time ago, it was just a matter of when, because 10 years ago my music was weird, and now it's on the radio. So
yeah, what you feel about that now, huh?
Haters? It's funny. No, it's funny. It really is funny, but it's exciting. It's really exciting to see because
how did the community handle the early stages of COVID?
Ooh, I mean, I know a lot of places were closed down for a while because even though places were open and it was mask mandates, you can't just the whole. There was kind of a whole thing of just even like gatherings, like they wouldn't allow gatherings of X amount of people or whatever, and it's just like a nightclub is just a breeding ground for smashed up people, not social distancing or whatever, and they pretty much shut that down for a while until it was pretty much after the second double vaccinations were coming out, pretty much. Then at some point I know that they were allowing people back into the club with masks on. You had to keep those on the whole time in there, and they had people watching you in there. Like you could take it down or take a drink, but it better be right back up or somebody's gonna be like, yo, put your mask back on. And you had to prove your vaccination. It was pretty weird, and it was limited capacity, so it was kind of strange at first because even a lot of people touring and DJs, they're just like, I'm not touring, not right now, no. So it was strange because I wasn't really doing any DJing or anything at that time. It was kind of just it was hard enough to find restaurant work out here because we were doing takeout only and stuff like that. On the other side of my life, it was restaurants couldn't even stay open. What more so a nightclub packed with people? You know what I mean? We couldn't even have restaurants open at that point. So it was tough.
Because early COVID, obviously you were with your parents, so it's kind of it's interesting. But it's you're for me, I felt alone, but not really alone. But, one of those kind of double meanings. But now when you jump from having to isolate yourself to going on stage, or just going into groups of friends, how do you kind of process that kind of transitioning thoughts?
It was tough at first because I didn't really know how to process it, and it's kind of something that will just kind of come naturally to you. You know what I mean? You kind of I'm a very go with the flow kind of person.
I do remember that about you.
If that makes sense, I don't really make a lot of plans, and if I do, they're very concrete and very in advance or whatever. But I try not to because most of the time when I end up making a plan, it just ends up better if I just don't. You know what I mean? Yeah. And some things require planning, obviously. Yeah. There's exceptions to everything. Yeah. But because I like to be very professional, but then it's also very important to me to be able to let that go. You know what I mean? You got to have time to not be so, rigid, and at least for my sake, rigid customer service, half an acting job sort of thing or whatever. Because I'll be honest, there's sometimes I'll be working in a restaurant and I'll say some things and I'm just I cannot believe that I just said that. Really, there is no way I just said that. But outside of work, and most people, at least especially my coworkers that I work with, they know that there's a stark difference between Kai at work and Kai on a hike or on a nature walk or anywhere else where he's actually comfortable. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of the customers that work with me will never ever realize, is that it's important it's okay to have two sides. It doesn't necessarily mean you're two-faced. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Sometimes they'll blend, but then sometimes they'll stay separate.
It's good to have sorry, my bad. It's good to have a good balance between that.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's important. At least when you work with people so much and you talk to a lot of people, it's important to distinguish the two sides and, be comfortable with both of them. You know what I mean?
And so, again, leading up to our conversation today, you said that when you do feel overwhelmed, now I'm hitting my own microphone. Look at that. You like to slowly work up to things where they can be more manageable and then not be too overwhelming.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds like a priority list.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, actually. It's especially in my line of work too. There's sometimes so much input coming at you that you don't like. Literally, there will be times where I have so much stuff going on where, like you were saying, you just freeze. Like you kind of just freeze, and you're just like, I don't really know where to go from here. And that when it gets to that point, I know I gotta like step aside, take another deep breath, just say okay, and just think real quick, like what is out of all these things going on in your head right now, what's the most important thing that I could tackle to help the situation right now? And you start with that one thing, you go two things, and then you keep building that up until you've reached a point where things seem manageable in your head again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't. Yeah, a big one step at a time guy when it comes down to it. Like multitasking is important, obviously, especially with some jobs. But when you get too overwhelmed with stuff, it's good for me to just like take a step back and reassess the situation and prioritize. So it's all prioritizing.
I like it.
When you get all flustered, you don't know what to do. You don't know where to go sometimes from there.
Yeah, because even, just trying to recently, so like my office has gone through renovations. And so like there's always so much to do. When it comes to packing, this because you just moved into a new place. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, likewise, man. I like the new place for sure. Work never stops outside of work. That's for sure.
No. Because there are times where like I caught myself as I'm like trying to pack up the office. I'm like stopping in the middle of like the room. I'm like, what the hell do I do next? What do I do next? What tell me what to do, guys. And yet people like the team would be like, just do something. Just go.
Yeah.
So it's like,
you got this.
Okay. So it's definitely like hard to move through that when you're just, I don't know. I'm one of those that also like, that needs like, approval.
Yeah. Like, I know what you're saying.
Or it's not approval. It's, permission.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I need permission. It's like,
you always ask if something's okay before you actually like pull the trigger and do it or whatever. And they're like, bro, it's fine. Just go to the bathroom. Like,
right.
It's fine, dude. Like,
so, I know it's like, making lists that sounds like a very smart idea, but sometimes like, I guess for me thinking of trying to make a list, I kind of like think about all the things I need to do to get to that first list, the first item. And then like, I got this. And then once like I finally got it done, I'm like, oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
What's the hardest step for you to tackle that list?
Oh, man, it's because I used to be I still kind of am disorganized, but like it's an organized chaos, I guess is the best way to put it.
Nice.
Like, it may seem a little out of order to some other people or to somebody who's looking in from the outside, but as long as you know what's going on in here and you have a sense of what is making you comfortable and what's going to make things go better for you, that's more important than anything. There's a bunch of different ways to get to the same result. You know what I mean? There's especially when it comes to that kind of stuff, there's no right way or wrong way to do it. It's really just your way of figuring it out and getting through it.
Yeah.
It's the best way of putting it for me.
Oh, there you go, man. So one of the last things I want to ask you, your new DJ name.
Yeah.
As you left CMYK, which is, for those that don't know, in the print industry, that is the colors for like a standard printer.
It's a color format, yeah.
Color format.
You have like RGB, you have CMYK. I think there's one more.
Yeah.
It's escaping me, but
if you ever worked with like a office desktop printer, that's basically
pretty much.
Bada bing, bada boom. You transitioned your name to DJ OreGuam.
Yep.
What does that DJ name mean to you?
Well, it's funny because people are like, "What does that mean?" And it's really so simple. I grew up in Guam, which I've stated before.
Yep.
I now live in Oregon. I thought it was just cool to kind of like fuse the two into one name, and I just had people keep telling me, hey, I like it. Hey, I like it. It's clever, sort of thing. You know,
Yeah.
it just kind of stuck with me. Even all these years playing, you know, Xbox Live or doing stuff or that was like my handle or whatever. It's hilarious because I still keep in touch with a couple of these people online.
Yeah.
And they see me being a superstar DJ, like in Portland, and they see my name, my Xbox Live name behind me on stage, and they're like, "Yo, are you for real?" Like I was like, "I don't know, I didn't know." Everybody likes it.
You gotta market the hell out of
It's
that.
cool, yeah, it's great. So pretty much everything I do is just OreGuam now, essentially.
Yeah. I think it's great to merge the two places that you have called home, and then just flaunt it like all hell.
Just originality, uniqueness. I am OreGuam. It is literally my actual existence. So when people actually know that, they're like, okay, I like your name like that much more.
Yeah.
Now, pretty much.
Well, now that you brought up Xbox, I mean, I was gonna leave it off, but I was like, yeah, let's ask him. Okay,
fine.
so you had a short time as a Twitch streamer.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, it got to the point where I was sitting out collecting unemployment at home when they were dishing out $1,200 a week to people for
I do remember that.
whatever reason that may be. But I was basically making more than what I was making at that print job to sit at home and play video games, and I was like, let's hit the record button. I got a webcam. I got a microphone thing.
Yeah.
Let's try it out. So we did it for, a couple of months or whatever. And I got to a point where I was, making a couple $100 a month. And
really?
Yeah. Even if it was just to pay some gas or some groceries or whatever once in a while, it was literally just turning on the record button for something that I do anyways. It's not like, there's a couple of, interactive type stuff that you gotta pay attention to or whatever, but for the most part it was pretty much just me being myself, playing video games and getting frustrated and watching people watching me like get obliterated at video games, and I guess people thought it was funny or they enjoyed it or whatever, because I'm not like the best nor am I the worst, but I think it was more for the show. It was more the personality. It was more between the banter between all of me and the homies we're playing with or whatever, but it was more of just like a why not sort of thing. You know what I mean? If I'm going to be sitting here anyways, why not just... It was curiosity killed the cat sort of thing. I was just like, what if I film myself doing this? You know what I mean? And it was okay for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I started getting back, into work and doing job stuff again. And it's when then your time gets starting to take it away from other things or whatever. So, because the big thing about that is consistency.
Oh yeah.
With that kind of streaming sort of stuff or whatever, you got
that posts on YouTube.
It's important to have a schedule. It's important to have content on other sites. It's important to have all of them churning at the same time, like YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. And I just simply did not have it. Like I really needed like a social media manager to pay at that point, even though I was not making money doing that. But it's a lot of work. That's the thing, for people that don't really know too much about it, there's a lot more that goes into that than just setting up some stuff and plugging it in and saying, oh hey, what's up, and then like playing video games. There is so much stuff in order to be a successful, like real, like an act streamer that gets monetized, where they'll play, you get ad revenue and stuff like that or whatever. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of consistent time and dedication to get to that point.
Oh yeah, because even doing all of this, it's been, it's fun. It's fun for me to reconnect with you and get to know more about what you've been up to since high school. But the down part is like there is so much life going on,
Hey, life doesn't stop. That's for sure.
No, it doesn't
stop for anything.
It's like I got this. I mean, work obviously it's transitioning to like different things going on there, and then moving here. My dad passed away, so it's like.
Yeah, I heard about that. I'm sorry, man. He was such a good man to me, honestly. Like for real.
Yeah, thank you. But
really,
just like when all that's all happened, I was like, the podcast got to take a little back seat.
Yeah,
it's like there's no way. So those people that do like consistently do it all the time, and obviously if people are interested in watching some of your old film, it's still on there.
Hey, but like it's like we were talking about, self-care is important, even all these big time streamers or even these big time DJs or whatever, when something happens, they step away. They'll cancel tour dates. They'll stop. It's important. You can't just because you have other obligations to stuff, you can't let all of that other stress or all that other stuff, you can't try to like brush it off to the side or like sweep it under the rug or whatever, because it's just not gonna benefit you anything until you heal and move past that kind of stuff. And sometimes you just need time for yourself. You need time away from the rest of what you're doing in order to kind of cope with that. Cope is the word what we're looking for.
Do you do therapy?
No.
Because you said therapist earlier in terms of like someone to talk to.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of thought, how did this whole, I guess now it'll be the last thing I ask you. How did this whole, like,
no, keep them coming. Like, honestly,
in-tuneness with your thoughts all sprout from?
Over the last few years, going through long-term relationship, job change, lifestyle change, everything change. You kind of realize that, I was kind of just holding myself back, even personality-wise. You know what I mean? When I knew you in high school, I don't know what people thought about me or whatever necessarily, but I was not a very social person. I did not want to necessarily talk to people or branch out or make new friends or really do any of that. I was personable.
Yeah.
I was always friends with everybody. Everybody seemed to like me for the most part, but I never ever considered myself a social person or like an extrovert, quote, or whatever. And it wasn't until the last 3 to 5 years after working some more of these more people-oriented jobs, customer service stuff, and I'm just like, wait, why am I fighting this? Because it's clear that this is who I am as a person. And I think once it all made sense, basically, at that point. I was just like, I don't know why I need to hide my weirdness anymore or any of this, like...
I mean, you're wearing a pineapple shirt, man. That's
the thing.
That's
literally it. It's just like I'm done suppressing all those thoughts. And if you want to wear a pink shirt, then wear a pink shirt. You want to dye your hair pink too? Who cares?
Live your life.
Exactly. That's the thing. Is if it's not hurting you, then what's stopping you? You know what I mean? If it makes you feel good to dress up and look like you're gonna look like this, even though it's your day off or whatever, then do it. Just do it.
You can't really wear that to work, so.
No, not this. No, definitely not. It just has to be all black, pretty much. It's just all black.
I think when it's come to that kind of like uniform, it's like it is more rewarding to.
Yeah.
I mean, you can also bring the conversation back to the beginning. So
well, and that's the thing too, is like I spend so much time in an all black uniform working at work that pretty much almost any opportunity that I get to not wear black, I will take that.
Sure. Yeah.
Pretty much. So.
That makes sense. I'm the front desk person for my current work, and I remember the first time I wore floral or like some essence of a Hawaiian shirt, and they're like, "Oh, I like it." It's
like, what?
I was like, "Yeah."
Who's this guy?
It's also because like they didn't have a person previously. It was kind of like an empty spot.
Okay.
So I kind of took a vacant seat. So I was like, you know what? If it's vacant for a reason, and I'm gonna just make sure it is filled to the brim.
Yep.
But Kai, I can honestly, I love catching up with you. We'll catch up more.
Dude, yeah, we got to do this again sometime.
Right.
Sure. Do not hesitate to call me again for sure, because we got to catch up and do some other stuff too, even if it's outside. We're going to do outdoor podcast next time.
That's a little hard.
That's a little hard, yeah.
That's a little hard.
I'm just kidding. That was a joke. But
So I like to ask 2 questions from this packet of 160 hypothetical questions to wrap up my interviews in a fun little bow. So my first question to you. Would you take a $70,000 week job offer where you get paid to sit in a pitch black room and do nothing for 20 hours a day? So I guess it's just like, would you do that? Yes or no?
No way. No, I would lose my mind. No, yeah, I would lose my mind well before I ever get paid.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, how often do I get paid? Is it every day?
Yeah, right.
Do I get paid daily?
Like
do I get paid?
like
I'm just kidding.
Get paid every Friday.
Now my mind starts thinking about all this other dumb job stuff or whatever. I'm just like, I was like, is it under the table?
Right.
Like,
You have all these like questions that like start spreading out.
Does the government know about me sitting in the dark for 20 hours?
Just okay. So now, what would you imagine if like let's say you did take it and then you get that $70K on a Friday?
Sure,
dude.
Do I come back?
Right? Just be like, I'm doing a 1 week stint.
Yeah, I was like, can I get your card? Like, can I?
I have friends I could reference you.
Yeah, do I get referral points if I call somebody else? Like, do I get some kickback if I bring in other people to do this job for you? Like,
oh yeah, I would not do that because I need to. I mean, I don't know if it's just like the Asianness in me that has to keep doing something, but I can't just sit here and just like stare at a black wall for like all day.
Well, yeah, you're talking to recently diagnosed ADHD, man. Like I said, I'd lose my mind in like an hour. Like I think it's been 10 hours and it's been like an hour and a half, and I would, yeah, it wouldn't be good for sure.
We can't have that. We can't have
It wouldn't be worth any of the money at that point, because then I'd get out of that room and then I wouldn't even know what to do with $70,000. I'd be like, who am I? What's my name again? Like,
I got so much debt still. So it's like, you were talking about how like the idea of going to college and taking money out. Yeah, it's not fun.
It's tough. I mean, it's a very important decision that I feel like is it's made out to be like it's not so much big of a deal, because before, like, I mean, even especially when we were going to high school, it was almost like, it was still kind of like, you go to high school, you go to college, you do that stuff.
You get that piece of paper that's right over here?
That is that. Yeah, it looks nice. Looks sweet.
Yeah, and then I just remember the first thing my brother told me when he went from like high school to college was like, you remember everything you learned in college? Forget it.
It's because, yeah, it's pretty much high school 2.0. Yeah. Really. I mean, it's like, it's, and even that's another thing too, is when I was working for one of those big hotels or whatever, and the general manager was like, hey, you know what? Like, he's like, you have what it takes to get to this exact same point that I am at right now. Mm-hmm. He's like, getting that college degree and getting a management degree or something like that is pretty much going to just affirm that, essentially. You could put all the work experience down. You could work for all the best companies in the world, but having that certificate, having that piece of paper shows the commitment to stay with that. And that's more what jobs like to see with that than anything, is that you did stick that out for 4 years or however long it took to get that degree.
Yeah.
And that means something in itself.
Okay.
Even if, aside from all the stuff that you may or may not learn in college, that piece of paper is a commitment, and they don't just give those out to anybody that doesn't stick that out and actually go through all that stuff, which I did not do.
It's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff, and it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of that crossed my mind as a younger kid, and I was just like, I don't know about that. Like, so, but never say never. Like I said, it's never too late.
I remember I felt very self-conscious when it came to that point, senior year, like people are getting those applications out and then they're getting accepted or denied or whatnot. I just remember hearing like a few people like, oh, I'm going to a 4-year college. And then I say, oh, I'm going to a community college and then going to a 4-year college. Yeah. And then I don't know if you remember, I think I remember his name, but he was like, oh, no, it's very smart. And it's like a good idea because you get to save money. I was like, man, you're blowing smoke up my ass. No, it's not.
I mean, I had people telling me that, I mean, I knew a community college teacher that taught at Lane Community College and also had a teaching job at Oregon University. It's the same teacher.
Yeah.
Teaching the same subjects at 2 different schools for half the cost. It's some stuff, yes. Like when you get to that higher, like towards the last year or two of your specialized degree, then yeah, I understand how being in the actual college for what they're specializing in makes sense. But all that prerequisite stuff, it does not matter, because it's literally the same teachers teaching the same stuff in the first year, regardless of what school it is.
I know. Actually, yeah, I went to Lane. So I started at Lane. Then I went to UO, which you can see over my right shoulder. So the last question I want to ask you is, again, kind of going back to, so let's say your body doesn't go through any changes. What is one food you would eat for the rest of your life? I always try to find questions that kind of like connect to what we talk about.
Man, because I am such a food motivated person. That is such a loaded question.
Guam and that whole, especially like the Asian hemisphere, has a lot of.
I know. Food. I mean, and that's the thing, is I love stuff from all over the place, anyways. Whether it be Latin food or Japanese food, or even everything else in between, Mediterranean food and Italian food, and oh my gosh, if I had to pick one thing to eat for the rest of my life, it'd probably be just like sushi. It'd probably be like fish, and like just like fish and rice, pretty much. That's like it. That's all I need.
Yeah, Uncle Man, you hear that? Run
I know.
Away.
Call me an Islander boy if you want or whatever, but that's all I need is fish and rice to survive or whatever. But I don't. That's tough though, man, because I love so much food. Because even then, I'm thinking about just a nice juicy ribeye steak right now too, and oh my gosh, like I don't know. That's a tough one, man.
My partner calls me basic every time, because every time we go to get Thai food, I like Thai or was it pad Thai is something I always like consider, And then she's like, that's very basic, right? I was like, I know, but it's delicious.
Yes,
okay?
it's great.
So lay off.
I love it. It's okay to be basic.
I love you, but I love this more.
It's okay to be basic.
I'm kidding, honey. I know you're gonna. So
No, it's funny. You'd be surprised. I mean, the place the restaurant I work at now, our menu is massive.
Ooh.
Like, it is enormous.
Nice.
And some people literally get the same thing every single time, every single day. It's the same thing. It never changes.
So they're living that question right now.
Pretty much. Yeah. There's some people that do not like change that much, where it's just like, nope, don't ever change this. This is what I like. I don't ever want to try anything new.
Yeah.
Which is like the opposite of me, because I'm like, I'll try everything once as long as I'm not like allergic to it or it doesn't kill me. You know what I mean? Like, so I do have a couple food allergies, but
Kai, where can the people find you and your music on social media?
Okay. The DJ page was DJ OreGuam. It's going to be on Facebook. You just search DJ OreGuam. It'll be on there. You'll find it. The gaming page is also on there too, if you want to follow it. I might do that here and there as like a side thing, maybe every once in a while. I'm not going to take the page down yet because there's still so much stuff on there.
Sure, yeah.
But you can find me on Facebook. I have an Instagram too. It's at OHREEGUAM. It's spelled a little bit different, but that's the Instagram handle. I'm going to have a SoundCloud coming back up soon. I don't know if you ever heard of SoundCloud.
I actually found some of your music on SoundCloud.
Yeah. So I'm going to restart the SoundCloud again because there's a lot of that's like the underground Spotify for me, because there's a lot of stuff. I mean, you can find a lot of music on Spotify, but there's a lot of stuff that does not grace Spotify's presence, and that's the important part about being a DJ, is finding all the stuff that not everybody can necessarily have access to.
That's what I was going to ask. I was like, is Spotify, Apple, is that anything going to be in the future?
I'm not in the near future. Okay. I mean, it's always graced my idea to do kind of at least make one song, produce something or whatever. Maybe not get big enough to end up on Spotify. I really do like the whole like cover band DJ thing I got going on right now, because it's fun. It's taken me a while to get to this point. I'm kind of just like relishing the spot where I'm at right now. I feel the need to desire to make my own song right now. It's always been a thought though. And I'm sure if the opportunity ever came up where this guy's like, yo, I want you and your mind to help me make a song, I'd be like, okay, let's do this or whatever. But like I said, right now, I just don't have necessarily the time to sit down, and I don't have like proper music theory training either, just from what I've gathered over the years. Like, that'd be nice too, is to like kind of get somebody who has like a really good music theory knowledge and can teach me some of the other stuff that might be important to helping produce music and stuff like that.
Okay.
I feel like I'm missing a couple things in that aspect before I can get to that point, but it's always been in there. Yeah. That thought's always in the back burner for sure.
As long as you're always like making moves.
Yeah.
No matter how small or how big.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to be more active presence-wise on social media and stuff like that, because it's important for that kind of stuff. I mean, it's so big nowadays. Before, it was just kind of just like a sort of, if you can, then kind of promote it elsewhere. But now it's like, when I play at these other places, it's like mandatory that I got to be advertising every day, and I can't do it until a certain point and this and that. I got to get all the media and all that stuff, and it seems a lot more official now.
Good sir, Mr. Kai. Mr. DJ OreGuam, Mr. formerly CMYK. How do you feel now that this is our journey into this podcasting realm is over?
I feel great.
Over for now.
It's over for now. It feels good. It feels good to. I'm happy that I was able to share how my brain works with a lot of this stuff or whatever. I hope it helps some other people shed some clarity on some other things going on with their life, because it's very new to me and it's very refreshing. I've never felt so content with where things are mentally and stability wise. And I think once you kind of gather all these things that we kind of like touch base on today, you'll start noticing some positive changes in your life too. And I think that's what's important. That's the key right there.
I mean, that's probably the best note to end on. Kai, thank you so much for coming on by.
Thank you for having me, man.
Giant thank you to the guests for coming on and telling their story. And giant thank you to you for sticking around until the end of the episode. If you like what you heard or watch and would like more from Keoni Chats, the show can be found on all podcast platforms and YouTube. So like and subscribe there to get notified when new episodes are released. Or if you would like to follow the show on social media and get your notifications that way, you could do so by following KC Media 13 on Instagram and Twitter and Conluke Media on Facebook. So if you'd like to become a guest, you can email me at kcmedia13@yahoo.com. Tell me your story. I'd love to talk with you and love to get you on the show. So until the next episode, everyone, please take care.